What were you doing that day? Were you intentionally rock climbing? Who were you with?
So I was with my friend Trevor, Hunter, Maddie, and Isabel. And we were paddleboarding, actually, across from the deck to where the rocks are. A lot of people will jump off these rocks. There's been a couple injuries out there previously. But we paddleboarded across the lake, and we were going just to kind of hang out on a beach area that we love to camp at, all the above.
So what happened?
So a lot of the other people were hanging out paddle boards. We kind of all broke off into different groups. And my friend Trevor and I decided to climb a boulder that was anywhere from 35 to 40 feet. And it was very mossy and kind of insecure. And then when we got to the top, when he jumped, essentially, if this is the bottom of the cliff and this is the top, there was black lava rocks on the edge, and you really had to jump far and out to clear it. And I saw him, and he barely made that water zone, and it really freaked me out. And then he kind of swam away, and it was just my friend Isabel down here. She had a GoPro, but then her GoPro died, I guess, minutes before this happened. And when I went to jump, I hesitated. I got scared, and so I fell on my side onto the lava rock.
Wait, so, hold on. What? You were rock climbing up moss?
Well, it's kind of like a form of bouldering, but it wasn't anything crazy with grades. It was definitely an easy, maybe like V0, V1. But yeah, we climbed to the top, bouldered it, more like... It's definitely not the steepest climb ever. I don't even know if we could put it in the V0 range. At this point, I can't remember how hard it was, but I do remember that there was moss. The lava rocks, there's a type of moss. It's one of my favorites. It's called photosynthesis moss. And whenever it gets wet, it photosynthesizes within less than 3 minutes. So it'll go from black dormant to bright green.
Really?
And so that's what was on the rocks with lichen. But a lot of times when people develop areas to climb, they'll do a lot of route developing where they're cleaning the routes, either scrubbing the moss off or the lichen and making sure the holds are all clean and secure.
How old were you?
I was 17.
So the senior year of high school?
Mm-hmm. Summer before.
Summer before high school?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And was this a boyfriend?
No, one of my best friends.
Okay.
He's actually married to one of my really good friends, Brinley.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're at the top. You're both standing there.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking over the edge, and you were not deciding to climb down because the moss was too slick?
Yeah, and it was not only was the moss too slick, but again, when you develop routes, a lot of times routes are chossy, which is where bits and pieces of the rocks kind of fall off. And you develop it, make sure it's clean. The more it's climbed, the less choss or more secure the rock becomes. And this rock wasn't really fully secured. It's not like a place people go and climb. It's not a place people go and boulder. It was like we were at the lake. It's a place we go swim when it's really hot in the desert of St. George. It gets over 100 degrees. And so in June, that's what we were trying to do, was escape the heat.
Had you climbed this boulder before?
No, not like that. No, at least, no. Because I felt trapped on top. Yeah.
How long were you up there?
I just remember I got up top and I felt that gut-wrenching feeling that's like, don't do that thing. And Isabel was down there waiting for me, and Trevor had swam away, and I told her, I'm scared. I don't know if I want to do this. But then...
What was stopping you from jumping, or from being... What was causing the fear? Was it the fear of heights? Did you think you were going to hit the rock? Did you think you were going to hit the water?
The rocks. The uneven lava
But you saw
rocks.
him jump off first.
Yeah, and I watched him kind of get freaked out with how close he was hitting the rocks. I think seeing his momentum go down, I almost wish that I went first and then he could have gone second. But I also think being up there looking down, I did feel trapped. And then a thought in my head went, I do not want search and rescue to come and save me because I don't
This all went
Yeah.
through your head before you jumped?
Yes.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
it was just like, no, like I just have to go and do it. And Isabel was down here and she was the one who saw me hit.
So when he jumped, did he just jump or did he do like a running start?
He did a running start. And that's what, now that you ask me that, that's what freaked me out, is because I knew I would have to do a running start. I'm not as coordinated as Trevor that way. Especially then, I hadn't climbed as much to the degree. I definitely climbed, but I didn't train in the way that I do now in comparison. So yeah, running and jumping off a cliff, that is the aspect that freaked me out.
If you had decided to not jump, what would have been the alternative?
Either down climbing, which I just don't think was doable because it was like a 40-foot high boulder. I think in the police report it said 30 to 40-foot cliff. So down climbing with moss,
That's pretty
no
high.
climbing shoes too, right? Like we didn't have climbing shoes. We didn't have chalk. We were barefoot from like paddle boarding and swimming.
Were you roped up?
No ropes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no ropes.
What?
Because it's not a climbing area. It was like let's climb this quick section of rock so we can cliff jump. And when we were going around the rock, I think we thought it was way more secure than it was. And I remember being pretty freaked out on the climb up. But again, I think it was just the insecurity of the rock and the choss. The actual climbing level of it wasn't that extreme.
Oh my gosh. So he jumps, barely clears rock below.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you up there?
I probably hesitated for anywhere from like 8 to 15 minutes would be my guess, or like
so you're
maybe
up there
5
just like
to
freaking
15.
out, psyching yourself out.
Yeah, and that I think that's like one of the things is you just always have to commit. And I went back. It's so funny you say that. Definitely the running start. I remember like backing up on the cliff ledge so that I could get the running start. I started running and then just thinking, hell no, stopping right here, and that's what made me fall on my side.
Gosh.
So I think I should have committed, A, or B, just like been okay with calling search and rescue, to be honest with you, because they came anyways when I fell off a cliff.
20/20.
Like, yeah, it's true. Hindsight's always 20/20. But
Take me through what happened now. You're hesitating. You're at the edge.
yeah,
You're just about to go off.
totally. And I think just the fear, that gut feeling that people talk about, the thing that's like, don't go here, a serial killer's there. That's what I felt on the top of the ledge. And at that point, momentum was too late, and I stumbled on my feet and then fell sideways onto my left side pelvis. And it shattered my pelvis. My heel bounced, so I shattered my heel left side. This is actually really lucky in hindsight, but essentially the head of my femur dislocated from my pelvis before my pelvis shattered.
Wow.
Which is good because having a pelvis fracture with the femur fracture would really suck. And I only got like a tiny spiral crack kind of fracture on the head of my femur. So, and it also saved when the pelvis broke in the parts that it did. I'm really lucky because the actual hip socket, they were still good and intact. And a lot of people have to get surgery on those because the cartilage and the cushioning, they lose it over time. But luckily, I don't have the head of my femurs affected or the socket for the femurs there.
So when you're jumping, what did you hit rock on the way down, or did you just land on, like, was it flat rock? What was it?
Lava rock. Like, think about uneven. It's porous. It's black. And it's all kind of just in a pile, like, together. And I got really lucky because if I would have fallen to the left or to the right, potentially could have hit my spine in a different spot. So it's almost better that my left side body took impact than my spine or my face or front. But what the weirdest part to me is I was kind of a crazy wild child, and I grew up with a Marine brother who also rock climbed and got me into that. He was a guide for a local shop, Paragon Adventures, when I was younger. So got into climbing. He was working at the Desert Rat. And I think the confidence was there, but also just having fun and exploring. So, and not just with climbing, but with just everything. So I had a couple accidents months prior on a longboard trying to keep up with some of my guy friends who were really good at like going really fast, bombing on longboards down some of these roads in Ivans. And let's just say I couldn't keep up with them. And I had bruises, road rash, dislocated my shoulder, really injured myself. But what's different about that versus the cliff accident, to tie it back in, was when I fell, it was like a thunk, and I didn't have much bruising or scratches. It was all internal.
Oh, wow.
So I had internal bleeding. My organs were like kind of basically slightly cut up from the bones of my pelvis.
Wow.
And the other thing is when I fell, I remember this so distant. It's weird when you're falling because you think it feels like forever and like the quickest thing. I'm trying to find better words for that. It feels like you're taking forever, but it's also happening all at once and so quickly. That's a better way to word that. So when I was falling, I remember thinking like I need to protect my head. And so I went like this, and my elbow actually hit the lava rock. And this elbow, I still have almost more issues in my pelvis in. Not in a bad way, but it's like that external rotation because I broke it right where it rotates through the ulnar, essentially. And the ulnar and radius, right in the elbow, spiral fractured that. And this wrist. So this whole side basically just like, and then my left side as well and left heel just kind of hit the ground and bounced. And then the pelvis is really what took the impact. And luckily, when we were paddleboarding in earlier that day, we met this really awesome fisherman. And he was in like a tin boat or a small boat. And we made friends with him, had a really good chat with him. And he was out in an angle because remember, my friends were in, it's like a sandy beach alcove. And then there's rocks separating you from the point that we jumped into this alcove of water with rocks. So they're all over here. And they said that they literally heard my bones hit or something hit. And Isabel is the only one who actually saw it with her own eyes.
They heard you hit the rock.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So I've done cliff diving or jumping.
Yeah.
I sound like I'm like I've done it like twice in my life. Okay. And I vividly remember I was in high school actually when I did it.
Sounds like the age
I remember
demographic.
When I got done thinking to myself, I had time to think about my death on the way down.
Yes, that's the best description of that.
So so I just can't imagine what you're thinking from the point where you have this like moment where you decide I'm not going to jump, but I have to jump because it's too late.
Yeah, like I'm falling now. Like it's like, okay, gravity's hitting. Like, yeah.
So once you are on the rocks, do you remember what happened next?
Yeah, and this is where things get really crazy is one of the EMTs, maybe a couple of them, but they all thought it was really weird that I didn't pass out because I didn't.
You have a full memory of everything that happened?
Yeah. I think the only time my memory got pretty foggy was when pain meds were brought into the picture later on, mixed with like blood thinners, mixed with way too many things all at once.
Okay.
But yeah, I think that is the wildest part of this accident is I was very coherent. And to the point where the guy on the boat, the EMT, he was out in like the open space because remember, they're hidden. They heard the noise. Isabel's here. And he was there quicker than I could get off the rocks. He was like, phoom.
So he heard you hit and knew it was a body
He
hitting?
saw, because they're hidden. My friends are hidden on the sandy beach alcove. Rocks, the microphone, there's a big rock pile. You have to climb up the slick rock. And that's another reason why I think we thought we could climb this boulder is you're climbing a bunch of slick rock. It's all like a slick rock jungle gym. And this one didn't seem too different. And we were like, yeah, we got this. And it was definitely different. It was insecure rock. It was a different layer of the sandstone. Funny thing about the sandstone is different layers are going to be more porous. Different layers are going to, just like a diamond versus an emerald, have more hard scale to them. So I think when you're climbing up the slick rock and then you're climbing up the boulder, that layer of sandstone mixed in with the water of the reservoir, that rock was just not secure for what we were doing out there, for sure. And then you mix in the confidence of a 17-year-old who really hung out with her brothers too much on top of ignorance of a 17-year-old.
Yeah, we got to put it in perspective. You were in high school.
Yes. I would not do that now. And I learned a lot from my accident. Because of, these things essentially. But so my friends were hidden on the alcove. And the EMT cruised over because he saw clear visual. I think he was like probably enjoyed watching Trevor jump and swim around because he swam around the boulders to the friends on the beach. And then he probably saw me hesitating fall. And it was...
I just can't believe there's an EMT there.
This is where I had several things that happened where I'm like, oh, I am really, really lucky. Because he came over and as I was wanting to get up, even just creasing through the hip flexors and the hips, he held me in C-spine and made me lay flat. And with my pelvis shattered the way it was, it could have caused way more internal bleeding or severed more. Because essentially what happened is when my accident first happened, they thought it would be a full paralysis. And I'm really lucky that when a lot of the inflammation and swelling went down 6 months later, I got the news that it was a partial paralysis, which is great because you have more ability to heal the nerves and have them essentially come back to life.
The EMT comes to you. Here's my question for you, because I just can't imagine being in this situation where you are, man, you're laying on a rock like that after that just happened. Did you realize the extent of your injury? Was it, were you thinking to yourself, first of all, how did I just survive that? What were your first thoughts?
Well, when I was falling off the cliff, I do remember actually saying like, oh, or oh, like front door. And then again, as it's falling, like you said, you have time to think about your death. So you're like, okay, well, I kind of like my head. I'm going to protect that. And then honestly, I think, especially when I was younger, I had a more like nonchalant, joking attitude towards everything. So when I fell and I didn't pass out, I was like, okay, like that was messed up, but I'm probably fine. And so initially not going into full panic, but also adrenaline is a crazy, crazy thing.
Yeah.
And it was rushing through my body. And the EMT was great because he did do a test, nerve test, a paralysis test with the toes. And they didn't respond the first test. And that, I think, was like, oh, okay. That's a little freaky for me. And then the second test, I was able to get a wiggle out of my right side toe. And that was a really good thing because it was mostly my left side that was really damaged. My right side definitely had more security because there was not the dislocating of the head of the femur, but also the right side only had one big crack. The left side was shattered. I think the right side only had like one or two. And I think that's essentially what made more havoc on that left side. And there's also something on the bumpy part of your front pelvis, the ASIS, there's a nerve on that essentially. A lot of like longboarders or people who get road rash really bad will damage this nerve. A lot of moms who've had C-sections sometimes can damage this nerve. But when you cut through that nerve, and they had to for my surgery, you lose full numb from waist to knee on top of your quad and thigh. So not only like where you're dealing with the partial paralysis, but you're dealing with like the actual numbness from other variations of nerve damage.
Oh my gosh.
So I would say the nervous system, like when I fell again, I didn't have as much bruises, scraping, and outer havoc, but the nervous system is what took the most havoc on that.
Oh my gosh. So how did they get you off the rock?
So EMT held me, and I actually was asking my friend Maddie. It was really funny hearing her side of the story because it's been 11, almost 12 years. So long enough that I did want to reach out and kind of piece the story together, get all the medical together so that I can tell this more factual. I think when it first happened, again, I was young, learning a lot of information, but B, I didn't know how to maybe communicate the way that I do now. So telling it now, 11 to 12 years later, has been fun, but there have been aspects that I forgot.
Yeah, I bet.
But she essentially paddleboarded across the lake while they waited for the EMTs.
Who called EMT?
I want to say it was my friend Trevor, or it was the fisherman.
So you had cell signal out there.
Kind of. It was patchy. In fact, Maddie did remind me that it's so silly, and I remember doing this that day, but when I was younger, we would always go at night to these docks at Gunlock, and we would jump in the moonlight. Like we would sneak out from our houses, and that was the place we would go, is the docks at Gunlock. And for some reason, we would always like hide our outer clothes. Like we would wear swimsuits and jump in, but our phones and everything were under the dock. And the day we went paddleboarding, we just did the same thing, not thinking about that there's boats on the water. It's daytime, and it's actually way more waves in the water than normal. So our phones were essentially just right at the baseline of the lake under the dock, getting drenched.
Right.
So our phones were drenched. She got there and she was like, great, wet phones. And she called my brother first. My brother James is only a year older than me, not even. I think he's 11 months older than me. And so she had his phone number. And then she had James call my mom, or she called my mom. And the other thing she told me is she had to call my date, because apparently I had a date that night. I did not remember that aspect. So
it's like he's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, okay, she fell off a cliff. That's real. But yeah, that happened. And then I think it took 30 to 45 minutes for the ambulance. The road to Gunlock is windy. It's snaky, and it's up a canyon, and then you end up at the reservoir.
So okay, are you on the rock still?
I'm still on the rocks.
They're just like, don't move her.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's like on it. And Trevor stayed with me because Trevor and he's actually now on the police department. If I butchered that, sorry, Trevor. He's on the police force for Ivans, which is essentially the town that I fell off the cliff, or the bordering town. So that's kind of fun because he's really good in situations like that. And so I'm really happy he was there because he stayed with me and the EMT, and he just kept me calm and laughing. And
oh, really?
Yeah, like he was so on it. He actually was the person who I let ride in the ambulance with me to the hospital because, and I only got mad at him once when the adrenaline started to kick off. I was like, Trevor, you need to be quiet right now. But back to the main story is I'm on the rocks with EMT and Trevor. Ambulance finally gets to the docks, and then they get on a tin boat. I don't know if I don't think it's the fisherman's boat, but maybe it was. This is where that gets a little questionable. Or if they had their own little rescue boat, but it was small. And there was a stretcher on it, and there was probably 4 to 5 guys. And okay, I do remember an aspect. I have 2 fake teeth here. I was born without my IT teeth. And I've since got them fixed. But at the time, I had a flipper retainer that could come out, and I would be a hillbilly with my gap teeth. And when I fell off a cliff doing the assessment, they didn't want me to choke or anything like that. So I had to take my flipper out. And I just remember when some of the EMTs came in the ambulance that one of the guys was really cute and I had my flipper out. That's coming back to me right now. But it was like 5 guys. They essentially got me onto the boat and stabilized me as much as they could to go back across the lake to the docks, which then I got onto the ambulance. And the main guy on the ambulance in the back, the one that was distributing everything, was actually my sister-in-law's father, which
Wow.
is crazy because that's just like a small world for sure. And that's when I started to really feel the adrenaline kicking off. And that's when I was like, Trevor, you need to shut up right now because your jokes aren't funny. I'm now feeling the pain. And so they took a pillow between my legs because really what was causing it when we were going out that windy road of Gunlock, I could feel like my bones shifting. And so they took the pillow in between my knees and duct taped my thighs together.
Oh my gosh.
And then finally gave me some pain meds.
I've heard that before from other people that have told me about the incident and the lack of pain that they felt because of the overwhelming adrenaline.
Oh, for sure.
So it was almost like a instant pain reliever. Your body's just saying, you're not going to focus on this now. I'm going to redirect you to survival mode.
Definitely.
So you're on this boat. Now you're in the hospital?
So yeah, then the ambulance ride to the hospital, I believe, if you guys are locals, you can fact check this, but I believe it's 45 minutes to the hospital from Gunlock. So it's another 45-minute drive to the St. George Hospital. And we get there and my pelvis had shattered in a way that was past capacity for the hospital.
Oh, man.
Utah is known for their medical. Really great with new surgeries, and we have really good trauma unit or trauma teams for burns, essentially accidents like this, motorcycle accidents. And they were actually just building a team to come to St. George at the time with some bigger doctors that are specifically for the trauma unit. So before that happened, they were not fully at capacity for my style of accident. So I got there and there was a lot going on. So I don't know if this was negligence or just the chaos of the full situation. But I just remember thinking like my elbow's broken and the nurses kept pulling on my arm to put IVs in.
Yeah.
And they said, we already x-rayed it. It's not broken. I said, my elbow is broken.
You knew instinctively your elbow.
I knew, yeah. And they didn't x-ray that until I got flown to the next hospital. But before we get there, after a lot of that going down, I don't know how long I was there. It was definitely not a full day. I can confirm that. But we had to get put on a life flight to take me to the Murray trauma unit. I want to say within hours of me ending up at St. George Regional Hospital. So now I'm in near Salt Lake City, the Murray trauma unit, and it's because they have a great orthopedic surgeon called Dr. Buttersworth. His name is Dr. Buttersworth. I love his name. And he is the one who did my pelvic reconstruction surgery. And really, really awesome because there's not that many people in the States with a surgery like mine, and they're males. The other people with the surgery like mine are in Australia.
Oh, wow.
So essentially, they built my pelvis back, the parts that were shattered, with metal plates. But because I was so young and my pelvis was still developing, they built it upon the growth plates.
Oh,
which is amazing. It's pretty miraculous. And then remember, the head of my femur popped out. So I'm really lucky because I didn't have to get an actual hip surgery, but I had pelvic surgery. So I did have some internal bleeding in the organs from the bones, and then lots of damage to, again, the spinal cord. luckily, that was able to heal, come back, turn more into a partial paralysis. And I'm really lucky to be on the other side of that.
What was the months in the year following like?
6 months of bed rest. They tried to put me in essentially an old folks home, or a home where I could have care 24/7 and help, because I needed an at-home nurse because I couldn't go to the bathroom on my own. I couldn't shower on my own. I wasn't
Oh,
allowed to
man.
put weight on my feet, or I guess underneath my feet, for 6 months. And then I was healing quicker than they had anticipated, and it was my right side healing quicker. And that was great because after 6 months, I was able to kind of transition more into a wheelchair and get access back. I had already started with the wheelchair for days going to high school, but with the wheelchair hybrid combo of my walker, and the walker I would use mostly to stabilize myself, to put my wheelchair away so I could have some independence my senior year.
Yeah.
A lot of people wanted me to do online schooling my senior year, but it was my last year of high school, so I didn't really want to do that. And same with being in a rest home or an old folks home,
Yeah,
or
you're
a
like, no.
recovery home. Like, that's
Yeah.
not me. And I did enjoy my PT for some of the time, but I ended up trading that PT out for a local yoga studio had a Bikram style yoga called the Foundation Series. And I got so much recovery because it's a balancing series. And essentially, one of my legs needed to relearn how to walk again, because the right side learned a lot quicker than the left, because the walker, I could lean in the right side, kind of kickstand off the left as that side healed a little bit more. It took probably, to answer your question, 10 months to get to the point of my walker, and probably a full year to be without my walker on, and like being able to go hike or be confident with not falling. Or a lot of it was you lose muscle memory and your muscles atrophy when you're sitting for that long. So a lot of it would be just exhausting just to be standing or walking through even a day of school, really fatiguing, but also your muscles would just give out on you, because what your mind thinks you can still do,
Yeah.
your muscles no longer can do. So it was a lot of relearning muscle memories, connection to the nervous system, and muscle association.
What was it like going back to school?
Going back to school was interesting because I'm a very independent person. And in some ways it was fun because I could get out of classes. Like, I hate to admit that, but like, you could just walk your way out of town or wheel out a class if you needed to. But in other ways, I feel like I lost a lot of freedom because I always needed someone to be helping me. And sometimes people that I didn't really want to be stuck with would end up pushing my wheelchair. Very grateful for them, but you would get trapped. You would get trapped by people sometimes. And luckily, my friends and I had like codes for that, and they would come and save me. Because one of them was like a guy at school that would like tink my wheelchair over because he thought it was funny. But I don't think he realized, like, you can't do that to a paralyzed person.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So that was the part that was hard. And then before my accident, I had really started getting into rock climbing. And it was hard because a lot of my friends continued on with that. And when they would come visit me in bed rest, I really struggled with hearing that. I wanted to be happy for them, but I felt really trapped, especially before I knew what or if I would get recovery in my legs, because they did prep me within the first moments of like, you could potentially not walk again or be able to move your lower extremities again, so waist down essentially. And that was kind of an unknown until we hit more of that 4-month mark where we saw the inflammation really regressing. And then the 6-month mark is when I could put weight back on my feet, both feet. And that was great because the bedside toilet, I would have to use a sliding board to even get on.
Oh, man.
So it's like a piece of plank someone puts underneath your bum, and you need someone to help you from your bum to the toilet. Because remember, my left arm is broken. So I had my arm in like a rig, my left leg in a rig, and then my pelvis was shattered. So no weight on each side.
What? So what is it like now for you?
Well, I've dedicated my whole life into living a lifestyle for my fake pelvis, which is anti-inflammatory diet, whatever that looks like. Everyone has different biodiversity, so everyone's going to have a different anti-inflammatory diet. Really watching that fitness, but really rounded fitness. When you get into one zone of fitness only and you only build that one type of muscle memory, you're just creating more injuries. So injury prevention is something that I really love, a full, well-rounded, working on kinetic chain, shoulder to hip, cross-body exercises, but also really studying the nervous system and recovering the nerves, reassociating them with the new metal plates. Because now my pelvis is mostly metal. I have 5 metal plates and so many pins and screws that I've like lost count. It's unreal.
What? Okay, go back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
What was your family thinking during this process?
I
When you hit the ground
yeah.
and they got that first phone call, what
Mhm.
was the reaction?
I think they were really scared, especially when they showed up and the first talk was being paralyzed. But I think they got more information, more potential, more possibilities, and that was definitely helpful. But I tell some of my siblings that I feel like it's almost more traumatic for them than it was for me, because not only did they have to deal with my recovery, like my dad and mom and family were essentially like my at-home nurses and friends. They all banded together to create a schedule that someone could be there with me at certain times. So that was like really awesome. But I feel like it did affect them as well financially, because I mean, I took an ambulance from Gunlock to the St. George. Then I took a life flight to Murray, and then another ambulance. So it's 2 ambulances.
It's a lot of money.
It adds up. And we definitely had insurance, but not to the degree of what this accident could anticipate.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been back to where it happened?
I have. I've
Are you still
continued
climbing?
out there. I am. I'm actually a better climber now.
What?
If anything, I wanted to learn technique more and
you roping up, though?
understand it. Yes, always. Always roping up. Well, okay, I do love bouldering, but route developing, cleaning the route, checking the landing, crash pads, climbing shoes, chalk, spotters, going to places that have already been developed or not places that are 40 feet with water, and also reservoirs fluctuate in water. So if you think about that, it's not really a great place to cliff jump. Statistically, cliff jumping is more dangerous than rock climbing.
Yeah.
So I don't cliff jump. I hate cliff jumping, and I will not be a cliff jumper. But yeah, I do love outdoor recreation in a way that I want to understand all the rope skills, all the different variations of climbing, how to do it, so I can feel really confident in those scenarios.
Are you afraid of heights?
Kind of. I can be in certain situations, but I've worked on it a lot, and that's kind of another reason why I've loved canyoneering and some of those other rope skill set hobbies.
But when you're up that high, do you feel like there's like a like a PTSD thing happening? Are you nervous? Do you remember? Does it trigger things for you?
Yeah, I would say the first 4 years were really hard to get on rope. And I would like do this thing where I would climb up and down, up and down, up and down when I was lead climbing. And it's funny because that's more work, more danger, and again, more work than just going up clipping and then like, whew. But it was a mental thing I really had to work through. And I really wanted to work through it because it's weird. It didn't just affect me when I was on the cliffs or climbing. It affected me when I was driving a car or getting on a plane. It's just the fear
Really?
of, because now your brain goes from being this careless 17-year-old who like kind of built an image upon like going with the flow, it's whatever, like being goofy, to now I am racking my brain PTSD style on how you can get injured, what can go wrong. And in some ways, it's been great because I love prevention now. I've gotten my outdoor wilderness first responders, just anything like that to get into preparation. I just love getting educated on best practices for those scenarios. Hopefully one day I can do the C-spine for someone else because an EMT essentially did that for me. And again, he was an off-duty EMT. So yeah, I would say the PTSD took some time, but I definitely was aware of what it was and had words and vocabulary for it. So I could take it through a process of just staring at it like right in the face, I
Yeah.
would say.
Wow. Are you a spiritual person?
I can be, but I also don't love dogma where it gets over spiritual or like blanket statements. So I would call myself like a neutral spiritual person.
I just think it's so amazing that you lived through that and all the things that happened during that time. And that's crazy. So when you're looking back on this, in that moment that you decided to run, would you have taken that out if you could?
Yeah, I think that knowing my like connection coordination, I am so good at isolation coordination, but like doing the 2-for-1 motion, like a dynamic movement where you're running and jumping. Like I can run, I can jump, but can she run and jump? And that's something I've trained a lot against since the situation. But yeah, I think I probably would have been safer down climbing with the climbing skill set that I had at the time.
But I mean, would you, if you could go back in time to remove this whole situation from happening ever?
Oh, okay.
Like if you could look
completely.
back on everything that took place from the trajectory that it's brought you to today and all the things you've learned and all the things you've become and all the things that have, that, you know, would you, if you could go back in time, would you pull this whole thing out from happening to you?
No, I would not, because the way that it's given me a connection to the nervous system is just a gift that keeps giving to people. So, and that's why I think that I'll always just continue to be in the personal training world and teaching yoga and fitness and whatever that capacity is, because I think that a lot of times we get told debilitating things like you can't walk again, or you're like, I've heard even yoga teachers tell students that they'll never touch their toes. But really, I just think it's finding the biodiversity and finding a recipe that works for you, because every injury is so different and specific. Where you get your insertion site, is there scar tissue? Are you adding in passive stretching, dynamic stretching, but also like plyometrics, bone density building, like jumping, running, all of that. I think the recipe of it together is something that I would not have experienced without the recovery of that. So, yeah, no, I would not.
I think when you go through such tragedy, you have a decision to make whether you're going to make it work for you or work against you. And I think you can make it. In your situation, it's worked. You took it and turned it to a positive thing and made it work for you. And you could have threw in the towel. I think it's interesting how you're talking about how you made the decision to exercise and the nervous system and all those things. And I was thinking that like you could have just given up. You could have just been in the bed the rest of your life and been like, why me?
Totally.
But I feel like it's made you a stronger person. Am I off on that?
You nailed it. Like I want to know all the information because of it. And at a capacity that is above me at that point. And what I mean by that is not only did I go through all of this yoga teacher trainings, but I've done personal training license online. It's a test that everyone can take. Of course, you have to do classes or you can do in person. But I've also went to school for anatomy kinesiology through some of those Utah medical programs in Salt Lake City that are world-renowned, and then getting a massage therapy license as well. Specifically, I worked at a chiropractic office with injury pain clients, people who were there under their insurance because of an accident. And even my clients now, I don't take on too many so I can give them more attention, but I love working with people with injuries or scar tissue or someone's told them they can't touch their toes.
Yeah.
Because I promise you, give me at least 3 months and we'll
Are you ever
change.
like, let me tell you my story?
I was for a while, but I did, when it blew up a little bit there, like I worked with Free People Movement and a couple other big brands, and I was a part of their Great Outdoors Month. And I feel like I had a couple of people kind of reach out and tell me that they felt like I was exaggerating my story and paralysis. And I didn't realize how much that really got to me because I stopped sharing my story as much. And I think that that's why this podcast is another reason why I reached out and vice versa, is because I wanted to tell it again without that attachment, but with actual facts and information and going through medical documents.
And I can't believe anybody would say that to you. That's incredible. I think you have a pretty incredible story. And the fact that you are rock climbing now and you're able to, like, you have a hip that's, your pelvis is full of metal and pins and screws, and you're rock climbing and not thinking about how you're going to fall or the fall that you had, that blows my mind. Because I would be up there going, yeah, no, I'm out,
And there definitely are days, I think that's the thing with the mindset, right? There are days where it's like, yeah, no, I'm not doing this today. But it's knowing to commit, right? Just like jumping off the cliff, you have to commit. That's the one thing I learned from my accident. You're either all in or you're out, because that in between is where you fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
So we can put that on a t-shirt.
Yeah, put that on a t-shirt. What?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
I just am so amazed that you're so mobile. And like, you're like, what's your recovery percentage? Are you like 90%, 95? Are you like 80%? Like where, like to where you should be, I guess. I mean,
totally. I would say I'm at like 95%. And within the last 2 years, even, it's gone from 75% to that 90.
Wow.
So that's been great. And a lot of it is continuously practicing movement. And not one modality, not all yoga, not all climbing. All or nothing mindset, I would say, is one of the biggest killers of getting yourself to a full rounded point with your fitness and health regimen. Because it's easy to over-identify with something. And it is beautiful to have an identity and passion towards something. Like I'm definitely I am a climber. I love teaching yoga. I'm a yoga teacher. But it's easy to sell yourself in one modality. Like I like doing weights, cross training, kinetic chain training. All of it is really important to get to that point of mobility. And just having equal strength to your mobility is huge, because you could be so strong but lack of mobility. Or there are times in my practice I've been too mobile with lack of strength. So really rounding it out.
That's crazy. I don't even like to rock climb. I don't know how you do it. Like I look at the people that rock climb and I was like, yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah. I think if my brothers didn't get me into it and it wasn't something like where I live, there's so much world-class climbing. It's so hard not to get into climbing. I think that that's where it's like, okay, well, we got to put this behind us because this is what I wanted to do before and this is what I want to do after. And I think that was motivating for me, for sure.
Have you reached out to anybody else that has fallen, or have you talked to any other people that have, been in a situation similar to what you've gone through?
My restorative class that I've been teaching for almost 10 years, I want to say it's been on the schedule for 9 now. It's all about nervous system resetting, but also rehabilitation. Like each class, we work on a segment and we go through it systematically. I would say that that class has attracted people with neuropathy, people who didn't have words for what their neuropathy symptoms were, people who've had hip surgeries, whether it is the femur and hip socket or pelvic surgery, people with low back injuries, because my low back, my SI joint is fake on the left. It's a metal pin, the little back dimples that we all have. And that creates a lot of tension because a lot of muscles essentially connect there. The ones that move and lift our knees and hips. And that can create a lot of havoc and back pain, essentially.
Wow.
So I would say that the way I've been able to connect with people that way has been awesome. And it's been a bounty of people I've been able to connect with in that sense. But more specifically, I have had people who've fallen off cliffs reach out to me as well, or pelvic surgeries, or just shattered their pelvis.
What's that like for you?
Sometimes it's been really great, but sometimes I can't relate because they didn't get pins or screws, which I don't want to minimize anyone. All experiences are different, but I just don't relate because the recovery was different. And I think I'm someone who's proactive. I don't necessarily need a PT to be making sure I'm doing the exercises. I'm going to be doing them, learning them, finding them, researching them. And I think that it's hard for me to relate to people who want to stay maybe in the dwelling zone for too long of the debilitating.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Wow. Your story's nuts, man. That's crazy. I can't imagine what it was like, what it would be like to be 17 years old and go through something like that. And think maybe my life is over. But you didn't think that, I feel like you used it as a positive and turned it around. And I'm impressed with how you aren't like angry or blaming or pointing fingers or anything like that. I feel like that's totally not normal because a lot of people I think would be in that situation.
And I've definitely lost my patience sometimes with people more so than with the anger of my accident. And just people when I'm forced into a zone to not be my authentic self. I would say that's my biggest reaction zone.
Well, I appreciate you coming.
Yeah,
Thanks for telling us this crazy, amazing story. And I think you got a long, wonderful, happy climbing career ahead of you.
Yeah, I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Thank you.